Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at some fun battles from the Master League featuring a level 50 shiny Xurkitree running a surprise nuke move to try and one-shot Rhyperiors. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Master Irish, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now it goes without saying, Xurkitree, not a Pokemon you want to run if you care about your elo. This is more of just a pick for fun. However, fun is exactly what these battles are, as Power Whip on Xurkitree can make Rhyperiors have a terrible day. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at shiny Xurkitree in action in the Open Master League. Hopping into the first match, and it's like looking into a mirror. Rhyperior versus Rhyperior. Opponent is going to switch out and make a catch of Breaking Swipe onto Primarina. Primarina does get debuffed by the Breaking Swipe, and Xurkitree is going to hit the field. Xurkitree going to fire off this Discharge. Discharge is going to connect, and down goes Primarina. Opponent, after seeing only electric moves, may be inclined to bring in Rhyperior, and if they do, they're going to have a truly terrible day. Do they respect it? They do not. That's a good night to the Rhyperior. In the back is Xurnius. Xurnius unable to get the farm down before Xurkitree is able to make it to a final move. And just like that, Xurkitree got through 2.5 Pokemon just by itself. In comes Rhyperior. Unfortunately, Rhyperior should have got a Mud Slap sneak there and didn't. Rhyperior is just going to, at this point, commit to farm down and Breaking Swipe debuffs. The Breaking Swipe is going to be shielded. There's the switch out into the Palkia. Palkia, of course, Dragon Breath is going to be double resisted here. Xurnius goes for the Moonblast. That does massive damage. Xurnius is able to get the farm down to the Palkia, but in comes Rhyperior, mud slapping down and securing the win. Hopping to the next match, Rhyperior versus Togekiss. A pretty good lead for Rhyperior. Even though Mud Slap is double resisted, due to this better pacing on Rock Wrecker, Rhyperior can just command this matchup. Rhyperior going for a bait, and is actually caught onto the Giratina. So the opponent tried to get fancy with a catch, but Master Irish was baiting, and they take big super effective damage in the process. In comes Palkia. Palkia can survive this Dragon Claw. However, it is going to be getting that Palkia very low. So the Dragon Claw is going to connect. Palkia not going to risk a potential third Dragon Claw being reached. Just going to build up to the back-to-back Aqua Tails, as this way there's going to be the Aqua Tail available for the Togekiss when it re-enters the battlefield. Aqua Tail will do some pretty okay chip damage, and now you have the potential to put Xurkitree on this Togekiss. In comes Xurkitree, and Xurkitree, it's so glassy, it has to shield everything, as Ancient Power would do way too much damage. And now Xurkitree looking just absolutely incredible with the shiny. Gotta be one of the best shinies in the game. Opponent is just gonna let that through, and they have Ho-Oh in the back. Oh my goodness, they are so weak to electric and rock. And bad news for them, there is one of each on Master Irish's team. They no-shield the Discharge since it would do less than a double super effective Rock Wrecker, but realistically, that just still does not give them a win con. Rhyperior able to tank the Sacred Fire, even post-debuff Breaking Swipe will still be enough to knock out. Opponent really trying to close out this game, trying to get the win, but a win is just not in the cards as Rhyperior mud slaps down a flying type to take the win. Hopping to the next match, Rhyperior versus Palkia. Rhyperior does win this in the 2-shield always. Opponent, oh no, they throw right when they get the move, and that gives Rhyperior a free 10 energy. That's why throwing on alignment is so costly, is it just gives free energy to your opponent, and that can sometimes turn matchups from a good matchup into a bad matchup. I mean, in this instance, Rhyperior is going to win the 2s regardless, but my goodness, giving away free energy like that is very, very tough. There, it looked like they tried to throw on good timing, but unfortunately, I don't know. It looked like the Palkia stopped for a second there. Opponent is going to switch out and make a catch onto Yveltal. Yveltal going to get hit with the Breaking Swipe. No debuff comes through. In comes the Xurkitree. Xurkitree is going to fire off the Discharge. Discharge is going to connect. Yveltal barely able to hang on, but the Thundershock after will be enough to pick up the knockout. Back in comes Palkia, and Palkia will be able to outpace. Palkia fires off the Aqua Tail. Xurkitree not going to be able to survive. In comes Palkia, farming down the opponent. Whatever they had in the back was clearly weak to Palkia, as the opponent will concede the match. We've got a nightmare lead in the next match. Oh my goodness, Rhyperior into Tapu Bulu. This is basically the worst case scenario lead. We're going to see very nice catch onto the Xurkitree, But this grass knot does so much damage. Poor Xurkitree. Oh my goodness. Opponent is going to switch out and catch the discharge onto a Xerneas. Xerneas, a good Pokemon to bait out here, but the opponent, I mean, if they ever saw a Ho-Oh lead, they would just instantly lose on the spot. But unfortunately, there's no Ho-Oh on Master Irish's team. So he's just in a really difficult predicament. If you bring in Rhyperior, you're getting close combat, and if you bring in Palkia, you're getting moonblasted. Palkia is going to let it go. Oh, the Xerneas actually went for the close combat there, so the opponent was not looking at the top right to see what got brought in. In comes Ho-Oh, but this is still just looking like an impossible game to win, because how do you get rid of that Tapu Bulu? Opponent can just save 2 shields for the Tapu Bulu, just as they're doing right here, and realistically, there's not really a way to win this game. That's a very nice catch of the Sacred Fire onto Rhyperior. But Tapu Bulu re-enters the field of play. Rhyperior got attack debuffed as well. And yeah, there is just no way to win this. Opponent at this point can just go straight for the Nature's Madness, because all you're trying to do is just farm your way through this Rhyperior. Rhyperior is going to make it to the Rock Wrecker, hoping the opponent is going to try and call a bait, but they are not. Instead, they're going to get this full farm down. A switch out at the last second is still not going to be enough, because the Tapu Bulu has too much of an energy head start. Tapu Bulu is going to get hit with an Aqua Tail, but Aqua Tail will not be enough. Tapu Bulu withstands that damage. Tapu Bulu going to fire off the Nature's Madness. This is going to be good night for this Palkia. And Rhyperior gets KO'd by a Bullet Seed. And yeah, I think that lead is just impossible for this team. We move to the next match, Rhyperior versus Zacian. This Zacian is on Snarl, so they will have faster energy generation than if they were running Quick Attack. The confident no shield by Rhyperior, as it is just going to be the Play Rough. A lot of Zacians are running Play Rough plus Wild Charge, which means that they realistically don't have a super effective move. The Rock Wrecker does get shielded. Zacian firing off more energy. Rhyperior this time more than happy to match shields, but just didn't want to give up the first shield in the matchup. These Mud Slaps are shredding through the Zacian. My goodness. Firing off another Rock Wrecker. Opponent just going to let this go. And now they're going to bring in Dawn Wings. Dawn Wings can absorb a Rock Wrecker, but it's still going to do quite a bit of damage. The Rock Wrecker is going to land. We're now going to see a switch out to Palkia. Palkia going to be answered with Xerneas. Palkia, honestly, I found in my battles Palkia is a lot harder to safe switch this season. Like, I definitely do get the idea behind the team, which is Palkia safe switch baits out like a Dialga, and that way Xurkitree, since it's completely walled, won't have to face it. But man, with the amount of different fairy types that are roaming around, and especially Primarina, it is definitely a lot more difficult to use. In comes Rhyperior, just going to use Rhyperior to force Xerneas' energy, and now it's all up to Xurkitree to close the game. In comes Xurkitree, opponent going to bring back in the Dawn Wings firing off energy, the shield from Xurkitree, it's going to be the Dark Pulse. Can they get to another move here? No, they cannot. Xurkitree gets the farm down, back in comes the Xerneas, but Xerneas just does not have the energy it needs. Discharge number 1 reached, and that's going to be followed by discharge number 2. Shiny Xurkitree lighting up the sky as it takes out the Xerneas and is able to secure the win. Hopping into the next match, leading Rhyperior into Mamoswine. Are they going to be on Mudslap here? No, they are not. So the opponent actually on the old fast move of Powder Snow. Good timing there by the opponent as they fire after 7 Powder Snows. The Avalanche is no shielded. That does so much damage. Oh my goodness, that is very unfortunate. Rhyperior is going to fire off a Breaking Swipe bait, get a debuff, and now in comes Palkia. Palkia going to get hit with a debuffed Avalanche here. Avalanche, even when debuffed, still does add up quite a bit. Mamoswine able to get Avalanche number 2, as the third is going to be in only 5 Powder Snows. Mamoswine actually lets itself get fully farmed down. In comes Dialga. So definitely feels like the opponent really wanted to try and avoid having the Dialga switch locked. Dialga, oh, we see a catch of the Spatial Rent, but it's onto a Palkia. That's going to do way too much damage, but now the opponent, I mean, they're going to realize it now, but that was actually a really, really good catch for them. by throwing away the Palkia, anticipating that Dialga would be good in the back, then they've actually set themselves up for victory. Because Xurkitree could hit for neutral against Palkia. It's completely walled by the Dialga. Dialga's going to get a full farm down here, as Xurkitree will fall short, and there's just no health on the Rhyperior, and there's no health on the Palkia. So the opponent making an absolutely perfect read in that game, my goodness. Realizing Dialga was the key to victory, and that does end the game in a win. Rhyperior versus Dialga, amazing lead for the Rhyperior. If Rhyperior wants, it can go for a 1 shield and a mud slap all the way down. In this instance, Master Irish gonna look to try and fish for a debuff, and does get the debuff. So this way, Master Irish will leave with less energy, but will leave with more health overall. So that's the trade-off there. Rhyperior getting the full farm down. Opponent now gonna bring in a Veltal into a loaded Rhyperior. That is not normally what you want to do. The Rock Wrecker bait gets called, but it connects, and the opponent is just getting absolutely shredded by this Rhyperior. The Breaking Swipe now gets shielded, and for the opponent, I mean, this Rhyperior has effectively KO'd 2 Pokemon on its own. And now the opponent really has to hope they have like a Tapu Bulu in the back to try and win this game. And they're actually going to have Necrozma, but it's the Duskmane variant. So it is going to be the Psychic Steel type Pokemon. The Discharge is going to land. Opponent, honestly, Dark Pulse might KO here. Xurkitree is not tanky. Oh, Xurkitree barely hangs on. Let's go, Xurkitree. Xurkitree barely surviving that move, forcing the final shield, and now in comes Palkia. Palkia is going to get to the Aqua Tail. This will knock out Duskmane, and then all that's left is that low health of Veltal, and with the shield remaining, there's just no hope for the opponent, and that is going to be a win. We move to the next match, Rhyperior versus Kyogre. Oh, this is a disastrous lead. Save switch into Palkia, answered with Dialga, and we are off to a very tough start. Building up to the Spatial Rend, baiting with the Aqua Tail. I do like this bait. If you're able to make the Spatial Rend, that would be absolutely massive. Opponent, not going to let that happen. I think at this point, you just let this go. Yeah, they threw the energy. You're not going to be able to make it to Spatial Rend, but you can potentially get a ton of farm on Rhyperior, and Rock Wrecker is going to do a lot of damage to Kyogre. It's a very powerful move. It's a Rock-type clone of the move Blast Burn. So it's a move that hits very, very hard. Ironhead shielded up. Rhyperior getting a big farm down. Looking to switch out into the Xurkitree. Xurkitree is going to be met with Zacian. And this, oh my goodness. This endgame almost feels a little bit impossible. Zacian going to be shielding up very early on in the match. Xurkitree firing off another Discharge. Discharge is going to connect. I think the play may have been to hold on to the energy until they debuff themselves with a close combat, maybe. And then you could have had a shot to potentially knock them out with that Discharge, because Xurkitree would win charge attack priority over the Zacian. But instead, the switch timer is up. Xurkitree gets KO'd, and there's just Rhyperior can do a lot of damage, but it can't quite do enough, because even though it's going to be able to get rid of Kyogre, there's still the Zacian. The Zacian is around, and Zacian is going to get to the move and win charge attack priority. So Master Irish was able to get it pretty close for how difficult of alignment that game was, but unfortunately, the pacing not in Rhyperior's favor. Rhyperior versus Duskmane in the next match. Opponent, oh my goodness, how weak can one person beat a Rhyperior? Having a Rhyperior counter, a very good thing. And they try and call the bait. They just get fully one-shot. Yeah, this game is just instantly over. Opponent actually plays to the CMP tie there. That's a very risky CMP tie to play for, because you're risking giving 10 free energy to the Rhyperior if they don't click their move right away. The Breaking Swipe is going to be shielded. Breaking Swipe gets a debuff. Rhyperior farming up a ton of energy, and again, the opponent throwing right when they get the move. Rhyperior gets to punish that and get 10 free energy as a result. And this opponent, oh my goodness, they are going to be seeing a Rhyperior in their nightmares. They get debuffed again. The double Breaking Swipe debuff. This Breaking Swipe just KOs. And now going to pivot into that shiny Xurkitree. Again, this is a Pokemon that I did do some raids for. I think it was during the Go Fest when it was available. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the shiny. I'm not normally much of a shiny collector, but this shiny is just unbelievably good. They go for the Sunsteel Strike. That move may be resisted, but it definitely does not look it. In comes the Palkia. Opponent apparently does not have Outrage, as they will concede the match. Hopping into the final match, Rhyperior versus Xurkitree. Xurkitree can hit for massive super effective damage with close combat, but one close combat does not KO. Master Irish lets it go. Opponent just going to go for a Moonblast. Moonblast makes sense because if you need 2 moves to KO anyway, you may as well throw the move that doesn't debuff yourself. Rock Wrecker is going to land, and we're going to see a switch out and a catch of the close combat onto Palkia. So being able to preserve that Rhyperior for later, opponent brings in Rayquaza. Rayquaza used to terrorize the Master League. Unfortunately, due to the Breaking Swipe nerf, it has hurt its play quite a bit. Opponent shields what could have only been an Aqua Tail, but Rayquaza is so glassy that honestly, at this health range, you kind of have to shield an Aqua Tail or it puts you into farm down range. Rhyperior loses the CMP tie, which is a little unfortunate. Gets debuffed as well. Breaking Swipe doesn't quite KO, but we're going to see a snipe with the Xurkitree. In the back, opponent has a Shadow Tyranitar, and this could be a moment where Power Whip gets to pop off. Going to bait with the discharge. The discharge bait is going to get shielded. These smackdowns melting through this poor Xurkitree. Xurkitree is going to be shielding as the opponent will go for the brutal swing. And now it is Power Whip time. Xurkitree's attack stat is through the roof. Power Whip is super effective. That's a one-hit knockout. Xurkitree gets Thundershock down, and that is a good game. All in all, these were some very, very fun battles. And as I mentioned throughout, that shiny Xurkitree is just gorgeous. Oh my goodness. One thing that I will reiterate is Xurkitree, while it's a fun pick, it's definitely not a pick you should run if you care about your elo. Like, this is if you've already met your elo goal for the season, or if you're just looking to have a fun day of battle. Xurkitree can be fun, but with how absurdly glassy it is, it's not going to be a consistent Pokemon for climbing. But I really like the Power Whip choice, because previously I'd seen it showcased with Dazzling Gleam, but in a Rhyperior meta, I think grass damage is absolutely at a premium. So putting Power Whip on the Xurkitree, I think, was honestly a pretty inspired choice. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.